a pretty good transfer window, if I do say so myself. Let's be perfectly fair, though. The best bit about the transfer window was keeping Declan Rice. Not just Declan Rice, of course. We had numerous players who were excellent for us last season. Yes, Cresswell, Ogbonna, Antonio, whilst they were brilliant and amongst our best players, they probably weren't going to be subject to any bids from other clubs because of their age. However, it's not just Declan Rice. Make no mistake about it. There would have been other clubs who fancied Thomas Souček and Vladimir Coufal, who were to, I think, go on and be pivotal in us recruiting. Quite a surprise signing on transfer deadline day. We'll get into that in a minute, but keeping those players was key. There was a lot of people looking at Aston Villa and Southampton before we'd really signed anyone of note and looking at those clubs and with jealousy, saying, look, these guys have made signings. They lost their best players. They lost their talisman, Jack Grealish and Danny Ings. And now you look at it and look at the business we've done, it does not look too shabby. And I made this point to Gio, and I made this point a couple of times during the day. I do believe the net spend of the Championship last season, the last season there was no COVID, should I put it that way, was 180 million. I think it finished up at about 45 million or something like that. Well, it was the last time I checked. Massively down. If anything demonstrates the impact of COVID, it's that. But we did see, well, I felt so anyway, this hurried, manic transfer deadline day, which I thought was going to happen, which was more or less clubs admitting we're skint, we need to do a deal. Why else would you see Simmer, who went from Slavia Prague for, I think it was £7 million, actually, and then Brighton signed him, he got loaned out to Stoke, is that right? Something like that. This was a player people were talking about. I do believe the Slavia Prague chairman had said, we want 50 million for him. The price was low. Even our own Alex Kral, that sounds weird, doesn't it? Sounds good, though. Our own Alex Kral, an obligation option to buy it. An obligation with an option. An option to have an obligation, whatever it might be. 12 million. Well, this is not the same £30 million that we saw and was quoted previously in the window. And I do think there's a lot of deals with a lot of players who ended up moving for a lot less than we thought they would move for. Not all of them. You can look at some big deals and think that's that it would demonstrate something opposite to what I'm saying. But there were some bargains to be had. And I think, by and large, for West Ham, it has been a pretty good window. So not only did we not sell our best players, we brought some in. We can't say. The only player we can probably say with any real certainty that we know how he's going to perform is Dawson, because we know what we're getting. We probably have an idea how Areola's going to perform, because it was Fulham's Player of the Year. And you can't have too many goalkeepers, can you? Certainly David Moyes thinks that way. Zuma, we have an idea on Zuma, because he played for Chelsea, played very well for Chelsea. He is a player with good Premier League experience. We know what we're getting there. Kral Vlasic, we don't know quite so much. Let's be perfectly honest here. They could be good, they could be bad, they could be indifferent. I suspect, though, that they're going to be good. And I'm just going to look down here at the various list of players who did come in and made their moves over the transfer window. And you have to say that we've done remarkably well in this one. With Vlasic, it was 26 million. I believe the transfer fee was that, with 7 million in add-ons. That is a big fee for West Ham. It absolutely is. And I'm glad to see us do it. And the reason I'm glad to see us do it would have been easy for us to be a little bit reticent, a little bit reluctant to splash that money, which is, in the £30 million bracket, certainly once the add-ons have gone in, bearing in mind what's happened before with Sebastian Haller and Felipe Anderson in particular. You don't want to be spending out money again and making a loss. So, fair play that we would go and spend that money out. And look, he could be good, he could be bad. I suspect he's going to be good. And the reason I suspect he's going to be good, because these feel like David Moyes signings. I don't think we're going to have a Ben Rama situation. Now, when I say a Ben Rama situation, it's not that Ben Rama wasn't a David Moyes signing. He might have been. It's just we suspect he's not. And I would include myself in that. We all suspect that David Sullivan signed this player. So I think because of that, it's taken a little while longer. That was my chair. All right, just so you know. I had a few of you made comments the other day. It's my chair. Okay, just so we're clear on that. But there is no doubt that Vlasic, Zuma, and I think Kral are David Moyes' signings, and for that reason, they're not going to have to serve the same apprenticeship. Thomas Souček didn't have to go through the same rites of passage and initiation ceremony that Said Benrahma did. So I think this can only be good for West Ham. The longer David Moyes stays at the club, the more powerful he becomes. I know there are a lot of people who were saying, not so much on this channel, I understand that, but there are a lot of people suggesting that David Sullivan's going to stitch David Moyes up a bit. That David Moyes was... That basically the club had no money, David Sullivan had no money, and David Moyes was going along with it. And I said, I didn't believe that, because I've never believed, and you know I said this numerous times throughout the window, David Moyes is a man of character, he's a man of substance. And so are the people that work with him. Kevin Nolan, Stuart Pearce, they're not going to just go along with whatever David Sullivan said. It was quite clear. It was quite clear what had happened. David Sullivan wanted to persuade David Moyes to sign a new contract. To do that, he had to promise him funds. Otherwise, David Moyes would have gone elsewhere. His stock is high. David Moyes will walk into numerous Premier League jobs, and we know that Everton wanted to offer him the job before they gave it to Benitez. So you have to get all conspiratorial to believe that there was no money and David Moyes was covering for David Sullivan. I just think he took his time. I just think he had his targets. I don't think he got all of his targets, by the way. But I believe he got his number one centre-back target. There was a lot. I can't even think of what the fella's name was at Fiorentina now, thank goodness. But there was a lot of tears and not a lot of tears, but if you remember that there was a few day period when we missed out on this fella, Milenkovic. When we missed out on Milenkovic, or so we thought. And very much the news story doing the rounds that we had lost out on Milenkovic because Tottenham were going to sign him and beat us to it. And I think there was just so much of that through the window, particularly with players we were never interested in at all. I think a lot of these players, it benefited the club in some way to use these players as a smokescreen. It benefited West Ham for us to be linked with Taletazar and all these other players whilst we actually went for Zuma. That was great. What I loved about the final day, by the way, as the final transfer deadline day was Tuesday, I tell you what, no mention of Kral on the Monday. Nobody knew it. The guy that broke it, I can't remember, even a standard journalist, but didn't even break it till the Tuesday, until the transfer deadline day. That's great. That's really good news, all right? Because there are a lot of us, ourselves included at Hammershack, clamouring around for stories. There's agents that want to leak this news, but fair play to David Moyes for keeping this under his hat. This was completely left of field. And fair play, to Alex Krauss. Again, all right, just so you know, it's not me guessing. Alex Krauss' team, and to also everybody, because I would imagine everybody in that whole Czech Republic squad knew what was happening. Fair play to everyone for keeping their mouth shut and allowing West Ham to get the deal done nice, efficiently, nice and cheap. It gives us really good cover, really good cover in the central midfield area. This is going to be a massive benefit to West Ham. Mark Noble is going to play his part this season. And he's going to come on as sub and he's going to do his job, but this is his last season. If one of the main guys gets injured, Mark Noble's not going to be able to cover it and play 90 minutes for a month, let's say, if whatever, I don't know, Thomas Souček's out or something like that. This guy will be able to, so I think it's really good. Lanzini gives us a little bit of flexibility there, and it takes a bit of pressure off him because it means he can now occupy some of those positions in attacking midfield as well. So I think that's a really good thing. We've got a versatile player in Lanzini. He can play in 3 or 4 positions. I don't think he's going to be first choice, anything like it, but he's going to get some game time. Kral, this is a good signing. He meets the profile of what David Moyes likes. He runs, he tackles, he's tall, he's going to be a threat in the box. Good signing, really pleased about this. Hard to talk about Vlasic with any certainty, it has to be said, because we don't know that much about it. But the clips I've seen, he looks like a good player. He looks extremely competent, extremely skillful. Much the same as Benrahma, likes to sort of cut in and try and curl the ball in with his right foot, because a good goal-scoring record. Good player, hard worker. I mean, as I mentioned a couple of days ago, looks almost a cross between Bowen and Ben Rama, and there's nothing wrong with that. I understand. I totally understand the concern about the lack of a striker, but I'm just not going to go through that cycle again. I did that in January when David Moyes said that we don't need a striker. I'm going to bring Jesse Lingard in. He's going to get us the goals. Okay, and then I've got to at some point hold my hands up and say, right, fine. He probably wants to go a different way, and you can't have it both ways. You can't, during his first stint, call him an old-fashioned manager and criticise him for the fact that he won't modernise and he's one of the old school and this, that, and the other, and then actually you then criticise him again when he does modernise and play in a way. And as I mentioned the other day, we sort of laughed at him when he said he was looking at football's latest trends and trying to incorporate them. We laughed at him for his David Moyes, he can't do that. But actually, you know what, if that's what he's doing and he maybe he's copying Pep Guardiola, but I mean that'd be a little bit insulting as well. He's been working for UEFA, doing dossiers all over the place, if you pardon the expression, and I think he's got a grasp of what he wants to do. Tactically, he's clearly not going to be surprised. This is a man that's quite meticulous. He's not going to be meticulous in every single facet of his football management and then suddenly just have a bout of amnesia when it comes to Mikel Antonio. He'll have a plan. He will have a plan. There's somebody going to play in there. And I think it's easy to say, oh, his plan is Andrei Yarmolenko. I don't think it is. I think it's too easy to say that. I think it's another stick to whack David Moyes with. I knowing from what I've seen on David Moyes, I think it's likely to be one of the more energetic and buzzy players. I just think that's likely to be the case. I don't feel this has been an unpredictable transfer window. The transfer window, if you watch this channel regularly, has played out exactly as I thought it probably would, which would be a flurry of activity towards the end. And us getting in players, I'm very confident. Well, I did a video yesterday of us bringing in 2 players on this final day. I didn't know which, Vlasic we assume, so I didn't know who the other one was going to be, but the messaging was always there from David Moyes and from the club that they wanted to bring in reinforcements. The only thing that really David Moyes said was there are no guarantees. Well, I guess there isn't. But I think they played a blinder. I think they played it down. I think they played down. Let's be fair. Look, you can either include the Dawson money or not include the Dawson money. It doesn't matter whether you think it's 55 million or you think it's 60 million. I think the club did a really good job of playing down how much money they had. I do. So we were able to get some of these deals over the line. And actually, I think it's good money for a club like West Ham to be paying 25 million for a centre-back, whatever, 27, 28 million for an attacking midfielder. It clearly did have a budget. It wasn't limitless. Far from it, actually. So I think it probably explains why he didn't want to push through some of the deals and some of the players that we were linked with, because he basically had enough for 2 players. And I'm really pleased that even though, he had enough for 2 players, he managed to get 4. That was what I always wanted in this window. I don't want to see a series of £10 million players. You got 50 million, buy 2 players. Great. That's what we've done. And you bring the others in on loan. Again, fantastic. And as I've said on numerous times, nothing wrong with a loan signing. Nothing wrong with it at all. Loan signings have worked rather well for us recently. I'm quite happy. I'm really, really happy. I feel that we've strengthened. Obviously, Connor Coventry's gone out. Mipo Adebeko is a really interesting one, actually, because he's signed an additional contract. He has to do it. He's got to go to Huddersfield and do the business now. Because even though we don't have an official second striker, we don't have an official first striker. If you look at Mikel Antonio's West Ham career, mostly hasn't been a striker. So with that in mind, it's quite telling that David Moyes didn't want to keep Adebeko around. Be really interested to see what he does. Obviously, Nathan Holland's out as well. There's a few players out. Connor Coventry's gone out. Good luck to Connor Coventry, I think, and hope he's going to do really, really well. I think he is. I think he's going to be one of the best players. Don't be surprised if Connor Coventry is the best. There's a player of the season at Peterborough. All in all, really pleased. They've only got one little minor whinge, and that is nothing to do with West Ham or anyone else. It's just that it's the transfer window is closed. You sort of want to see the players play. I want a game. at the weekend. Of course, there's not, because it's the international break. So let's just keep our fingers crossed that nobody. I was going to say that nobody in the Czech team gets injured. We got more Czech players than England players. There you go. Which is fine. It's nice, just nice to have some internationals. We got a Jamaican international as well now, who needs to go and make sure that he doesn't get injured at all. All in all, pretty good stuff. But even if a player does drop down, I'm looking forward to the season. I'm invested in what Moyes is doing. And even then, even if we did lose a player, I'm not going to start acting like it's the end of the world unless we started losing a run of games. I think it's going to be really good. I think it'll be a decent season. I said knockout stages in Europe and top 10. That's a good season, West Ham. However, I revise that now following these signings. I don't know how. I'm not going to do a prediction, but I think we can do a little bit better. I do. I think. Can we get sixth again? That's going to be hard, but I certainly think we can do reasonably well in Europe, and I think we can certainly get top 7.